I would like, let me just pull up where I can see it because I can't see. Oh, can you scroll? Thank you. Thank you
Of
very
course.
much. The meeting. So we have one action item, which is to review the minutes. And then we're gonna give you some overview, talk about Prosperity 10,000, the final report, and then closing. It shouldn't be a super long meeting today. First, I'm going to do a quorum check.
We are
Aaliyah,
2 members short
2
currently.
members short. Wow, okay. All right. Well, we'll check back in a minute or so. First, I guess I'll talk about just really quick. Todd and I presented to the HEC. We are trying to make sure there's greater transparency and communication between the two. As you know, the WTDB kind of is nestled, positioned within or under the HEC. And so we talked to the board and talked about the letter from the governor wanting to emphasize greater transparency and communication, data sharing. And I also encouraged that board to remember that members of this board have a lot of expertise and ability, and they don't have to just interface with Todd or I or Venkat. That there are other people on this board who they should consider interfacing with on questions or connecting with. So I wanted to make sure that the lines of communication really in keeping with that letter are open, and then also laying the groundwork for a greater discussion about data sharing. Is there anything else about that meeting, Todd, that I missed?
No, I think you summarized it nicely. I do have a couple of things. One that just transpired to share. Julia Pontoni was going to be here to present on the WorkForce Oregon performance measures in response to the governor's letter that many of you are aware of. Unfortunately, an urgent priority situation came up, and she's going to have to recuse herself from the meeting. She did inform me, though, Sherry, that she didn't have a lot of updates and is still planning to attend the December full board meeting over at Vigor Industrial up in Portland, and plans to have more substantive updates to share at that time.
Okay.
So I think the meeting might even
maybe shorter.
Shorter than what you anticipated. The second thing is related to that. Since we have a little bit more time, I see some names in the participants today that I'm not familiar with, and maybe a couple of quote unquote guests. I wonder if it would make sense, Sherry, since it's not a real large crowd, if we had folks introduce themselves.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's so funny, Todd, you're reading my mind. I actually thought about that. Then I was like, oh, I don't want to slow people down. I don't want to make them feel like they're taking more time. So I'll start. My name is Sherry Dunn. I am the chair of the board. I'm a small business owner here in Portland. I run ITBOM Consulting. And so that's me. And I'll go to Aaliyah because you're right next to me in the Brady Bunch squares, and people should know what you do, and then you can pass it to the next person, Aaliyah.
Thank you. My name is Aaliyah Sobolowski. I am the Executive Support Specialist for the Office of Workforce Investments and the WTDB. I'll pass it over to Todd. Not that we don't all know who you are.
Thanks, Aaliyah. My name is Todd Nell, and I'm the director of the Workforce and Talent Development Board. And then next to me, below me, and I don't mean anything by that, Tom, I'm going to pass it to you.
Hi, I'm Tom Goodhue, Executive Director for Oregon ACTE and co-chair of the Work Readiness Committee.
Okay, can you pass it on, Tom?
Heavy lift.
I'm going to go to Venkat.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Venkat. I'm the vice chair for the WTDB and spent about 30 years in the technology industry, mostly with Intel and NVIDIA building AI products. Happy to be here. I'll pass it to Jennifer.
Hey everybody, my name is Jennifer Rice. I am a workforce industry specialist at the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, and I will pass this off to Digit.
Hi, I'm Digit McCracken. I work for Oregon State University. I'm the Youth CTE Trades and Workforce Development Specialist, also on the Oregon Youth Works Board. And I'll pass it to Clay.
Hi, Clay Martin. I am an analyst in the Office of Workforce Investments and help support the Workforce and Talent Development Board, but am primarily a guest today.
You can still pass it even as a guest.
And I will pass it to Dr. Bennings.
Hi, Adrian Bennings, the president of Portland Community College. And goodness, let me go to page 2 of my views. Let's see. It looks like, is it Miranda? Did I say that right? Miranda or Miranda?
You did. Thanks, Dr. Benning. Hi, everybody. I'm Miranda Scheiding. I am a manager in the Office of Workforce Investments, also a guest with Clay. I'll pass it over to my old friend, Anne.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anne Mercereau, and I'm the immediate past chair of this fine group, and I will pass it to Josh.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Josh Hall, Oregon AFL-CIO, and I'm the labor rep for this board, and I'll pass it to Jennifer.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jennifer Denning, and I am a program analyst within the Office of Workforce Investments, and I'm a bit newer in my role. I've been in this role for about 5 months, I want to say now, supporting the Workforce and Talent Development Board with various projects.
And Katrina's note taker. Hi, how you doing? I think that's who we have. All right, so let's bring up the agenda again if we can. Don't have to split. I'm one of these people who does not have 2 screens. I only live in one screen land. I know people find that shocking, but so we do not have a quorum. Do we? I don't think anything has substantively changed.
We do not have a quorum yet.
Okay.
I will keep you in the loop if we do end up with a quorum.
All right. Understood. Don't ask me every 5 seconds. I got it. All right. Okay. So we're going to talk about the WTDB strategic plan and workforce performance measures. As we understand, Julia couldn't join us today, but we do have Todd, Jennifer D, and Miranda. Miranda, I have a cousin named Miranda. So there you go, who are going to give us the 411 on this.
Great. Thank you, Sherry. So could you go to the next slide, please, Leah? So there are some, as I said, new faces in the group today. So I guess this slide is a little bit timely. But before I go there, I just wanted to say that in the spirit of sort of systems alignment and continuous improvement and accountability, which are 3 key themes that permeate the roles and responsibilities of the WTDB, which many, if not all of you, are quite familiar with. We wanted today to share some new work, I would say, that we're doing in the Office of Workforce Investments. And thanks to Miranda and thanks to Julia Pontoni for being so amenable to sort of shifting gears a little bit in the way that we do business here in the Office of Workforce Investments, again, with sort of a key goal, I would say, of what we're going to share with you, of providing more accountability, customer service, and hopefully systems alignment and improvements within the way that we do our work. So I'll start off and then toss it to Jen Denning, who will share some of that newer work that she was talking about, that she's in the midst of. And then Miranda will sort of take us home with her perspective on sort of how it's playing out from the managerial level. So as many of you know, the Workforce and Talent Development Board advises the governor, in this case, Governor Kotek, on workforce training and education. We provide through our strategic plan vision and leadership for the workforce system, both public and the overall comprehensive workforce system. Again, focused on customer service and value through collaborative system alignment sort of efforts. And then fourth, that accountability and continuous improvement. Next slide, please. So again, one of the ways that we are able to push different levers is through our strategic plan. When you look at the way the sort of the history of the strategic plan of the State Workforce Board in Oregon has played out, some of you have heard me say this, prior. It used to be a very long document, and it was primarily distributed via paper form and a notebook, and it sat on the shelf like the proverbial strategic plan and collected dust. Over the last, I want to say 5 to 7 years in particular, that has been whittled down intentionally to where it's now only really 2 pages. And the third page is, of course, the board metrics document that you've seen in prior meetings. So I think today we just want to illustrate that the evolution of the document has resulted in yet another way that we're, I think, becoming more efficient and effective in the way that we carry out our work. And so we hope that what we're about to tell you will translate over time as it's implemented into more positive results. And then that last, you can see that the 2 bullets on the right are hyperlinked. You can get to the plan and scorecard by clicking on those. And the governor's directive that Sherry lightly touched on earlier in terms of the letter that was sent out in May around performance and performance reporting by the agencies of the key titles of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, I think is sort of a twofer there, right? It goes to show the recent engagement from the governor's office that I think is pretty unique in that it hasn't really happened that way for quite some years. And then secondly, I think it underscores the importance of the WTDB table and you all as representatives. To Sherry's earlier point, it's not just Sherry and Venkat, it's all of you that are valued and respected by the governor to hold the system accountable, provide that continuous improvement, and really collaboratively focus on systems alignment. So next slide. So you've seen this, most of you, before. This is the first page of the strategic plan. Not going to read it out loud. Typical vision, mission. We also have position and reputation that we strive to get to. Thanks to Sherry, and I forgot who else worked with us on it, Sherry. We pulled together sort of shared values and agreements, which we've taken from a separate document and integrated it into the strategic plan. So this has really helped, I would say, in terms of the level of professionalism and collaboration and genuine partnership that I think has occurred because of us pulling these front and center as far as the way that we do business around working collaboratively with transparency and trust, trying our best as possible to use data to drive decision making, and then to be bold and innovative. The second page sort of lines it out a little bit more in detail in terms of 4 imperatives. and corresponding objectives that most all of you have seen before. And then the third page, as I mentioned earlier, really shows the board performance metrics. There are 18 of these metrics. And as we have in previous strategic plans, I think on a separate document, though, we do have, the intention of tracking, as you can see by the status column over there, that will likely remind you of previous tracking of board and metrics in a dashboard, so to speak. Next slide, I guess, yeah. So what we've done in the Office of Workforce Investments around tracking and accountability and trying to do things better for you as board members, and at the same time, and importantly for the workforce system writ large, is to think about how we can utilize some pretty amazing talent, I would say, in our office that have capacity to help contribute to tracking and, let's say, projectizing the strategic plan for the Workforce and Talent Development Board to really ensure that goals are monitored and met, and then be more transparent by getting more folks involved with different perspectives within the work that we do here in the office, and then last, supporting that alignment that I touched on earlier. So we're very fortunate to, as I said earlier, have folks like Jen Denning, I'm going to toss it to here in a second, and Miranda, Jennifer Rice, who's going to speak a little bit here in a few minutes, and many others, including Clay. Didn't mean to forget you as a guest, but I'm really excited about it because for the first time ever, the entire office, I would say, is sort of huddling around the WTDB strategic plan and asking those good questions about what can we do to help? How can we drive these 18 different metrics forward in order to better achieve the outcomes that we've set for the board. So without further ado, I'll toss it over to Jennifer Denning.
Great, thanks, Todd. Can you go to the next slide, please? So I just wanted to provide a little bit more background on some of the things we're tracking, and then I did want to make sure to take some time to show you the actual tracker and walk through that as well. But so the strategic plan tracker captures key elements that reflect progress, accountability, and alignment across agency initiatives. And specifically, we are tracking the various deliverables, including reports, briefs, assessments, and surveys, as well as some of the other tangible outputs that demonstrate progress towards our strategic goals. We are also tracking the timelines of those deliverables, which occur across various cycles. So we want to ensure the timely execution and review. We have identified project leads that are responsible for each deliverable. So we're showing supporting ownership and accountability. And then it also tracks when each item is due, how often it recurs, and the strategic purpose to maintain clarity and consistency. And then Todd touched on this, but we are mapping each deliverable to the HEC strategic plan goals, as well as the Office of Workforce Investments programming to help ensure a coordinated approach. And some next steps. So as we move forward, the focus will be on finalizing and sustaining the tracking process to help ensure a coordinated alignment with strategic goals. So specifically, some of the next steps include confirming that all metrics are clearly defined, measurable, and linked to specific outcomes. We're going to be maintaining regular updates to the tracker to reflect progress, changes, and any new developments. And then we want to gather feedback and input from the WTDB members to help us inform future updates and how those are provided to you all. Next slide, please. So before I transition to the tracker, here are just some guiding questions that might be helpful to you in providing us with your preferences on future updates. So what types of updates would be most useful? How often would you like to receive those? What level of detail would you like? And are there specific metrics you want to track more closely? So with that, I will transition to sharing my screen if I could. Hopefully you all can see that okay. Make it a little bit bigger. So this is the complete tracker, and we are
It's
using—
still kind of tiny for me. I'm sorry. There you go. Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we are tracking, as I said, many different elements. And so I thought I would just walk through each tab and give you a little bit better idea of the things we're tracking. So I'll just go from left to right. So starting with the key, we are using color coding and some different symbols. So we have identified each metric with an ease rating of either complex or long-term, a moderate effort, or an easy win. We also gave each metric a priority of high, medium, or low. And then each metric has a status of not started, in progress, complete, or stalled. Next is the summary sheet. And this just gives a broader overview of some of the main pieces we're tracking. So if somebody just wanted to get a higher level view, they could use this. And this is automatically updated when the main tracker sheet is updated. Next is the dashboard, which is tracking both the status and the priority. And so you can see here for the status, we have 14 that are in progress, 3 that are not started, 2 stalled, and 0 complete. For the priority level, we have 10 high, 9 medium, and 0 low. And I just wanted to clarify here that even though we have 18 metrics, we did decide to split out metric number 1 because they were very 2 separate reports with different timelines. Next is the HEC strategic plan alignment. So we've captured here each WTDB metric and where it aligns with the 5 overarching goals identified in the HEC strategic plan. Next, we have the main tracker. And so on the left here, we have the metric number along with the ease rating identified by these symbols here. Then we have the metric, a little bit more in-depth description of the metric. And then we've identified which objectives align with the metrics. We have the priority level and status, who the lead and the partners are, when it was last updated. We have a spot for notes and next steps. And then as you can see here, the bulk of this is to be done over the next couple weeks to a couple months, just to really kind of flesh all of these out and make sure we have this completed.
Can you, go back to like another line item just to kind of go through? No, from the start or from the left, from my left. Yeah. Talent assessment, wage, metric description, conduct a statewide review.
Sherry, can you see that?
Yeah, it's a bit. I'm getting close to
Okay.
it. Yeah, there you go.
Thanks, Jen.
I guess one question I have is, it says who's responsible, but does it say how?
Let's see. So we have some notes and next steps. But I think that's the bulk of the work that Miranda, Todd, and I, and possibly Clay are going to be working on over the next couple weeks to months, maybe, to really determine what those look like. So, you know, what the—
So one question.
If I could just jump in real quick, Sherry. Clearly, this is evolving. We've never done anything like this before,
Right.
so we don't have it all figured out yet. And every time we meet and every time we talk, which is at least weekly, it gets a little closer to sort of where we want it to be. But we're figuring it out as we go, obviously. So any input, recommendations you have would be great. And then I'd also I forgot to mention this earlier, and I meant to. The current strategic plan is 25-26, right? Clearly, we're on the back end of 25 into Q4 now. So even though some of these aren't yet completed or don't have deadlines for this year, right, we still have the entire calendar year of 26 to accomplish them. So thanks, Sherry.
Yeah, it's not a critique or criticism. It's just a suggestion. It might be great to have how, so we understand, like, it was a survey. It was a working group. It was like, how did it happen? Like, how did the data come to be? Might be helpful, because in the future, if we want to replicate it, I mean, maybe everybody internally knows how it happened, but a how category might be useful. Just a thought.
Okay. I'd love to add my 2 cents in there. Jen, if you can scroll back over to the left side of the screen so we can see what the first metric is. We ran into this, Sherry, when Jen and Todd and I were talking through what this presentation would look like. That number 1, we were like, what does that even mean? Who said what this looks like? So we were trying to figure out, like, what does this look like and how does this present in our work? And I think Jen Rice is responsible for this one. I was messaging her and I was saying, hey, do you know what this is? She's like, I have no idea. So we have a lot of different things that are growing and changing and that we are trying to link directly to this work. So I'll talk about that a little bit more later, but we did kind of talk through that. And I think once Jen gets to the next tab with the imperatives, we started internally just brainstorming where we are kind of doing this work. So I think that's maybe a space where we could identify the how in a more articulate way. But that's my 2 cents.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right, I will just finish the last 2 tabs here. So the imperatives. So this is where we're capturing the WTDB imperatives, the objectives, and how they align with some of our Office of Workforce Investments programming, including Oregon Youth Works, Oregon Service Commission, and our industry consortia. We've identified some deliverables within OE as well. We also have our defining OE project in here. And then again, the HEC strategic plan alignment. And again, as you can see, we are still working on building this out. The last tab is a report timeline. And this really is just to capture the various reports and briefs that are assigned to the WTDB since they are on multiple different cycles. So the ones that are highlighted in green are the ones you're probably familiar with, the ones that WTDB is currently doing or are already in place. And then the ones in yellow are new, the ones that have been identified in this strategic plan. And in talking with Todd and Clay, it sounds like it's to be determined if these will be moving forward beyond this strategic plan, pending evaluation of those. So that is what I wanted to share. I'm happy to answer any questions or gather any feedback you might have. I know Rhonda also wanted to say a few words.
Are you ready for my words? They're really profound. Prepare yourself.
They're deep thoughts.
We're going to do deep thinking today, Todd. Really what I want to share is it's very obvious that we have a lot of plans, right? We have the HEC strategic plan. We have the WTDB strategic plan. Jen also included defining OE in there, which is our kind of internal Office of Workforce Investment strategic plan. We're working on the talent assessment, right? We have all of these forces that are informing our work. And we're really trying hard to be intentional about aligning those stories and aligning this work. And that's why Jen put together that one page that links to what the HEC strategic plan intersectionalities are. So I keep pushing this. I bring it up at every meeting. I want to see the WTDB strategic plan informing our work and informing the Future Ready Industry Consortia work. And these things should all be engaged and interacting. This stuff shouldn't be done in a silo. So we're having a lot of conversations around how this needs to be pushed, this needs to be elevated, and it needs to be visible. So we're meeting in our team meetings weekly. Jen and Todd and I are meeting monthly just to go through this tracker and talk about what this looks like. That example I said earlier of that first metric with Jen Rice on the report, what we've talked about with that is, okay, so we don't know what that means, but we do see a need to talk about what our data looks like here in the Office of Workforce Investments, talk about we're gathering all this data, but it's not going anywhere, right? I feel like this is the third time I've said this today in a different meeting, right? That we have a lot of great impact stories. We have a lot of great, hey, we made X amount of investments into the state this year, and this is what it looks like, and this is who was impacted, right? There's no package or one pager that's put out there about that. So we feel like that particular metric that Jen is in charge of is an opportunity for us to talk through what that looks like on a bigger scale and talk about how we can demonstrate impact. So I hear you, Sherry, we do need to figure out the how of all of these things, but we also want to integrate it into the work, make sure it's aligned and de-silo. Is there anything else you want me to share about this, Todd? I think that was like my big
No, that was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But
And
you know,
I just
we
want
have
to.
been in a couple. Oh, sorry, Sherry.
Oh, sorry. I just want to clarify when I say how, I'm being like super literal. Like,
Oh,
was there a
absolutely.
survey? Was
Yeah.
there a
It's all good.
report? I'm like always curious, and maybe it's from my work experience of coming into places and spaces and having no roadmap for how something happened and not fully grasping that piece. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And I also think it's a
Same.
good note on this whole tracker for us about like, okay, once we do accomplish a thing, whatever that thing is, that we document it and say, then we have the projected things that we think we're going to do that help to complete that metric. But we also want to be able to like say, okay, yes, we actually did this thing, and maybe have some kind of package of like deliverables that we put out there that are really specific. Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, that's really good. I was just going to share another thing. We're in a meeting earlier today, Miranda and I, and some of this stuff came up, but I wanted to share Sherry, back to the systems alignment thing. You saw Jen Denning talk about the comparison and overlap with the HEC strategic priorities. The way that we got to that, Venkat, you'll appreciate this, was through the utilization of one of the AI platforms, and asked them or asked it to compare the two and show where overlap and connectivity was, with the goal of, like we've always talked about, right, Anne? Right, Venkat? Right, Adrian? Like, how can we take this big, huge thing that we're responsible for and figure out where the top, handful of priorities are that we can together across the system collectively focus on to move the dial? So that said, I was on vacation last Friday, but I was in a meeting with a bunch of folks from around the state, and we were talking about this very thing, given the state of the state in terms of fiscal environment, and there's like sort of that proverbial, how can we do more with less? And one of the things that came up among many, and just occurred to me as I was watching you, Adrian, as a matter of fact, going, I wonder what PCC's strategic plan says. So one of the things we talked about in the meeting last Friday was, wouldn't it be interesting to see what would happen? It wouldn't take very much time at all if we took key partners across this thing we call a system, took their strategic plans, because, to your point, Miranda, we're overly planful across the state enterprise and across post-secondary, and I think probably you could speak better to this, Miranda, K-12. What if we took a bunch of those popped them into AI, and I could consult with Venkat to make sure I asked the questions right in Perplexity, which I think is his favorite. But it would be really interesting to see what came out of it if we asked it to, hey, pick 5 or even 10, but 5 that we could really focus on for biggest impact. So anyway, it was just part of the conversation. I wanted to share that.
Unrelated, I'd like to let you know we have a quorum.
That is exciting. So we're going to stop there for a second, and we're going to do a vote on the minutes. So we have the minutes from August 25th. If people have not a chance to review them, if they could, they're from the executive committee meeting. I would like a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the August 2025 executive committee meeting.
So
Motion
moved.
to approve or second.
Okay, who was the first?
It was me, Anne.
Okay. And Aaliyah, did you get the second? Okay, all those in favor, you can signify by aye or raise your hand or.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, Aaliyah. I just need to put my trust in you. Thank you.
I'm always happy to let you know. It's a lot to keep track of.
No. I'm very easily worried. So, thank you, Miranda, Todd, and Jen. Sorry to interrupt with that, but is there anything else you want to close that out with? Hearing nothing, I will go on to Donna.
I guess I was just going to say, Sherry, to underscore what Jen said, if there's anything at all that those of you on today would like to see, recommend, have questions about, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'll, connect with Jen Denning and Miranda and others if needed to get you an answer back. So thanks so much for letting us share, and we're very hopeful that we'll see better outcomes because of this work.
Yeah, thank you all for really digging into that. That is not a small project. If anyone has ever tried to put together a tracker, what a multi-headed hydra it is. So thank you very much for getting us this far down the road. And I believe we have Donna up next, who is going to be talking about Title II performance. Is that right?
Yes, I am. Thank you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Donna Llewellyn. I'm the director of the Office of Community Colleges and Workforce Development at the HEC. I also have the pleasure of serving as Oregon's WIOA Title II State Director. And so today, what I wanted to share with you is really a series of 4 things that I would like you to know about WIOA Title II in Oregon, and a summary of outcomes from our most recent reporting year. So it is the year that ended on June 30th, 2025. Next slide, please. This slide here is really how we approach our Title II service delivery in Oregon. We really put the learner at the center, and we know that it takes effort from all of us, including us at the state, our local providers, our WIOA partners, and of course our funder at the federal level, to make our services possible. And while we may not all share the same view of what our learner is experiencing, as long as we have our learner in the center, it helps us stay focused and combine our efforts and resources to create seamless pathways for our adult learners. Next slide, please. The first thing I want to share with you is that there continues to be a need for Title II services in Oregon. And the next slide will actually give you a snapshot of who we have in Oregon that needs these services. So we currently have over 225,000 working age Oregonians, so those who are 18 to 64, who do not have a high school diploma or its equivalency. 13% of working Oregonians age 18 to 64 that do not have a high school diploma are also unemployed. And 20% of Oregonians speak a language other than English at home. And 20% of Oregonians age 18 and older do not speak English well or at all. And this is all based on data from the US Census American Community Survey. I didn't just throw darts at at a board to come up with the numbers. Next slide, please. So Oregon's Title II programs do continue to serve a wide range of individuals within our communities. And this next slide will actually start to talk about who our enrollments are. So we serve 61 participants who speak a native language other than English. We have over 39 languages represented in our programs. We also keep track of how many students are in those, of those 61% of those participants, what are the top languages? And you'll see on here that it's Spanish, Russian, Vietnamese, Ukrainian, Chinese, and Arabic. And our average age of participants is 34. So we're serving a middle age, sort of a young middle age populace. Next slide, please. So the percent of learners in our Title II programs has steadily increased over the past 5 years. So you'll see that just as the previous slide showed that we serve a wide range of languages, we also serve a wide range of people who identify with as a learner of color or more than one race. So about 69% of our population is identifying other than white. Next slide, please. So our programs are needing to be and continue to be responsive to those demographic shifts. Next slide. For the third consecutive year, our Title II programs are serving a majority of English language learners. You'll see that it's been steadily rising since the pandemic and continues on that upward trend. And last year we were serving 56% of English language learners in our programs. Next slide. Now, here's where we get to talk about performance. Our overall measurable skill gain, which is a complicated metric, but it takes in a lot of different pieces of data related to a participant is in an education program that leads to an academic credential or employment. Anyway, what we are seeing is that we continue to increase in this area, and we have also exceeded the federal target for the last 3 years. So next slide. Employment second quarter after exit has been consistently below the federal target, except for those participants who are in an integrated education and training program. So they're receiving contextualized and concurrent services on kind of like a three-legged stool is how I like to talk about it, holding the student up. So they're receiving workplace readiness skills or essential employability skills training. They're receiving workforce training, so learning how to weld, or being in a classroom, earning their certificate or degree, as well as the adult basic education component. So if they're learning how to, for instance, speak English, many times their reading activities will be contextualized in the employment area that they are training within. So they'll learn how to, say the word welding rod or hood, etc. And we are seeing a significant increase and almost doubling our federal performance targets. So in that area. Next slide, please. Employment, fourth quarter after exit, same thing. Not only are they getting a job, but they're actually hanging on to the jobs when they're in an integrated education and training model in our adult basic education programs. And we are doing a lot of work right now in providing technical assistance, professional development, on-site program consultations around IET program design at each of our program providers, so that we can continue to see these numbers go up, as well as we believe that it will also help us with the other students who are not currently enrolled in an IET.
Donna,
Next
this is
slide.
Kim.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt you? I have a question.
Sure.
This is absolutely phenomenal data from my perspective. So is it true that students in IET are by definition English language learners?
They can be English language learners, but they also can be traditionally English speakers.
Okay.
So yeah, so both
Okay.
populations.
Do you have any idea? Do you have an idea how many, like what the balance? My experience with Chemeketa Community College is that IET is, and this might not be accurate, but there are predominantly English language learners. Do you know if that is that a accurate statement? Is that typical across the state?
Yeah, I'd have to double check the data, but the integrated used to be known as EL Civics dollars, but it's integrated English language civics education, IELCE grant, requires an IET component. So my guess is for those programs that have IELCE grants that you will see that, and Chemeketa is one of those programs. But I can follow up with some disaggregated data if
I think
like.
this data is so powerful. It would behoove us to kind of dig in a little bit more, because if this and I think that if my assumption is inaccurate and these are not predominantly English language learners, then this is the model that we should be giving to everybody because it's so effective. So I think this is just really powerful information. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I made a note to follow up with disaggregated data on our IET students. Next slide, please. So credential attainment, interestingly enough, fell below the federal target for the first time in 3 years. And we're doing some examining in here in this area. We actually think that we might have had a data system glitch. And so we're taking a look at that, because a little bit of a downward trend I could understand, but this significant slope and dropping down below the federal target, I have asked our research team to dig into this a little bit more, because if that is in fact what is happening, then we've got some work to do in that area. And I am one of those people that likes to use data to inform our professional development and technical assistance to the field. So if this trend line is in fact accurate, we will be addressing that swiftly and promptly. Next slide, please. So, effectiveness in serving employers, and these are the results for WIOA Title II. This was the first time in 2025 that Title II was required to report on this. And so of the participants who exited our program in 2023 and were employed in the second quarter after exit, 59% were still employed in the fourth quarter with the same employer. So if they exit out, they get employment, they're staying employed, which means we did a fairly good job on those essential employability skills and getting them the tools necessary to be a part of the workforce. Next slide, please. So just in recap, our Title II programs do remain relevant. Our enrollments rebounded and actually increased 80% since the start of the pandemic. Our opportunities exist. There are opportunities existing to continue engaging the additional Title II eligible population. We are serving diverse participants and communities and consistently non-traditional students because of our average age of 34. We are responding to those shifting demographics. As I mentioned, we're serving a majority of English language learners for the third consecutive year. We're doing okay in terms of equipping participants with the skills for opening up doors to future opportunities. That 62% increase in the quarterly meeting earnings from since 21-22 is really promising. And we also supported over 2,800 participants in earning a GED and then going on to employment or enrolling in post-secondary education just this last year. And that was a 27% increase over the previous year. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I think that was the last slide.
You spoke to where the targets weren't met. You were saying you think that might be a numbers glitch, or is there anything in the environment or in the current situation that could also indicate that, or is it, yeah?
Yeah, we're also doing we have to do a federal narrative report that will be turned in next month to go along with our performance numbers that I just shared with you. And we're doing some research around trends in unemployment, particularly in certain areas where we've seen significant layoffs. And so we'll be taking a look at that as well. And I'd be happy to come back and share that information with you once it's compiled and we've had a chance to analyze it.
Well, you mentioned employability skills. Are you using the Oregon employability skills? There's like a metric or tool or something?
Yeah, we use, we're trying to do our very best to use what's out there. So we've been using the essential Oregon employability skills framework, as well as some of the national. We let our local programs choose, but basically it's what's been known traditionally as soft skills, but I really prefer the essential employability skills language.
Yeah, we had a tool, I guess, or something that people could use. Is there anything we can do on the board to be more helpful, or yeah?
I think just remaining informed and engaged in the workforce system as a whole. We are doing our very best in our Title II programs to make sure that we are partnering with Title I as much as we can, particularly there in that space. We also are doing quite a bit of work related to CTE post-secondary pathways. So supporting that and our career pathways funding has been essential in standing up these integrated education and training programs. We braid the funding together to create pathways that have the least amount of barriers. So that's what I would say.
Right. Anybody have any questions? Anybody struggling to find their mic button? I don't know. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna say, all right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming in and sharing that information with us. All right. So up next, we have Jennifer Rice, who's going to talk about the Strategic Innovation Grants. Jennifer?
Hey, thanks, Jerry. If my camera freezes, I am just going to turn it off, and I'm just letting you guys know if I do that, that's why. I'm here today to share with you and hopefully partner with you guys on thinking of some creative ideas for the Strategic Innovation Grants. I will be administering that grant for the WTDB. If you can go ahead and go to the next slide. You all might remember that I did present maybe 6 months-ish ago about this idea. Much has changed. Actually, there should be a slide before that, friend. Thank you. So I'd like to just touch on what the agenda topics are and just kind of a little bit about the Strategic Innovation Grants. So we're also going to be talking about the governor's priorities and what those might be, just to like think about what direction we want to go with these grants. I'll be showing you what part of the strategic plan, the WTDB strategic plan, that I felt was in alignment with the strategic innovation grants. And then we'll be hopefully discussing some really cool ideas for what y'all want to do this next time around. Next slide, please. So we'll talk a little bit about the governor's priorities. I stole these from her website that is literally Governor Kotek's priorities. So the housing and homelessness issues, so some things related to that might be to build more housing and rehouse our neighbors experiencing homelessness, and thinking about how workforce fits into that. Is it construction? Is it access? Like, these are some of the things that we could help with, or at least think a little bit about. Behavioral health. So as a sector, on that website, it says Oregonians are turned away from treatment and services every day because there's not enough workforce to meet the need. So thinking about behavioral health as a potential investment or area of focus. Early childhood education. It's another one of the governor's priorities, where every family needs access to affordable childcare options. We know historically, Oregon has had several childcare desert situations where access is limited. In addition to that, there's a lot of licensure requirements for a facility and for a teacher to get paid a sometimes not livable wage. So these are things that we need to think about with these sectors and potentially prioritizing the governor's priorities. That's a redundant sentence, but it is what it is. So if you could change the slide, please. Thank you. So this is how I feel like the SIGs kind of fit into the strategic plan objectives. So if you look at the strategic plan, it is kind of separated into objectives and outcomes, like Jen Denning so amazingly teed me up for earlier in this conversation. So these are the objectives and how I think that they are in alignment with the SIGs and how we could think about this. So imperative number 1 on the objectives is an inclusive workforce system that advances equitable prosperity. Thinking about how we might want to make investments in that space. Which in that objective, it's separated into different areas. So understanding and the awareness of the systemic barriers experienced by Oregon's diverse populations to entering and remaining in the workforce. There are a lot of those issues around, and so we want to think about these things as we figure out together what these investments might look like. increasing access and participation in quality employment outcomes by diverse populations and in-demand sectors are high demand. So high demand sectors, that's something we could look at making investments in specific sectors. We could spark and scale innovative strategies that advance more individuals and families into equitable prosperity. That might look like pilot projects or different interesting ideas that people have seen around. I'm trying to tee us up to have a discussion about what you all want to prioritize. Imperative number 3 is a clear understanding of and improved use and impact of the workforce system. So how can we have an impact on that? How can we encourage people to use the public workforce system, assuming it also works for people? So B in that section seemed to be something that the SIGs could prioritize, the strategic innovation grants, to increase the workforce system user awareness. You know, maybe it's a campaign for that. Yeah, you can go ahead. Thank you. So on the second page of this the strategic plan has the outcomes that Jen Denning was also talking about earlier. These are outcomes that we could potentially move the mark on through the SIGs, which would obviously improve the outcomes of the WTDB as a result. So develop 3 standard program pilot evaluation metrics. So if we want to look at pilot projects and figure out what might work for people, that might be an option. The take-up rate of promising innovations or newly funded initiatives based on promising innovations. So we could really consider funding workforce pilot projects that really are spurring innovation around the state. And how we want to write that into the grant is something that we could consider as a group, or that you could all consider, and I can document and get it in the RFA. So that you all have a voice in this process and have some agency in picking what's going on. Initiatives could also increase board and partner understanding of the specific gaps in the system awareness and develop effective strategies, increase system awareness by specific customer groups, kind of some of that equity conversation I was just talking about on the last slide. So how can we invest in projects that are going to kind of limit that gap? That's another option to think about. And so your thoughts in this whole process are really to have that increased influence over the investments related to workforce. Like, this is a place where we can capture some of your ideas that you've all had as a group and really make an impact in the workforce and different training programs that you all want to prioritize. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is kind of where I have broken down different things that I really like to have the conversation about, like who do you want to be eligible applicants for these grants? What kind of organizations would you like to invest in? Do we want to go ahead, Anne?
I didn't know if you at the beginning of what you just said was now's we're supposed to talk, or if I'm interrupting your flow.
No, I don't have a flow. I am just going to capture y'all's ideas the best that I can and try to incorporate those into the RFA so that I can help you all make the investments you want to make.
I guess I'm just wondering if an easy place to start, and I get that it's supposed to be new and innovative, but are there things that were on the cutting block that we're feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's being impacted, that would be easy to maybe pick up and say, let's use this as an opportunity to keep that going or starting or whatever? On the budget chopping block.
Okay. For the OE programs, I can say that I think that a lot of the suggestions that have happened have just been to decrease a lot of the funding. So that would take like a lot of effort to like pick through them all because they're all going to be receiving a reduction. If Miranda, you have anything that you want to cite in this, I feel like I can see your brain.
I would say I think we're okay. And a new budget forecast just came out today. And I mean, I'm not feeling ultimately optimistic, and I'm not really the right person to speak on this, but we did these scenarios of the 2.5% cuts and the 5% cuts and what that looks like, but they're really just scenarios. So at this point, we don't have any concrete answers on how that will present with our team. And I think by the time we do have answers, and again, we all know this is really uncertain, I think we want to keep the momentum moving forward with these conversations, because I think that as we're looking out into the community that the SIGs have been serving historically, I'm sure they're also facing a lot of funding uncertainty too. So I don't think that's like a real answer to what you're asking, Anne, but I also think it's like a let's leverage this flexible funding that we have to be able to fill some of those gaps that we're seeing out in the state. Sorry, Todd, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's totally fine, Miranda. Thanks for that. Yeah, I was just a couple of things occurred to me, Jen, when I saw your eligible applicants. Several of us staff here at the Office of Workforce Investments back upstream sort of talked about that, and there are several of us who are were at that time sort of aligned in terms of a competitive strategy was better than not. So the broader that we could cast it to relevant entities, the better chance for substantive grant making and efforts there would be. The other thing I wanted to mention, in the Workforce Readiness Committee, to your question, Anne, in the Workforce Readiness Committee, we've got about 3 buckets, right, that are focus areas. One, the Oregon employability skills, which is continuing to scale across the state, primarily in K-12, but it's also making headroom. Sorry, not headroom. That would be max for you older folks, but headway is what I wanted to say. In post-secondary as well, not to mention workforce. The second one is STEM and AI in the classroom. And the last is CTE and transfer. And so given recent developments around what's happening in STEM, and I don't mean to steal any of your thunder, Venkat, but Venkat is on the Workforce Readiness Committee, and he and Sarala Paliwal are sort of lead on the STEM lift, as it were. That second bullet that I mentioned, maybe there's an opportunity on both fronts as far as Oregon employability skills and STEM related things and AI in the classroom to do what we've done in the past, which is to sort of incentivize or weight the scoring of RFAs, RFPs, whatever we're going to call them this time, more favorably if applicants incorporate usage of those priorities of the WTDB into their grant.
Yeah, and to add to that, I know that we have talked a little bit about this eligible applicants could potentially being ESDs or in schools, as that hasn't been a typical recipient of this grant in the past. So I'd need to change that in the RFA, and I'm totally happy to. I just want it to be reflective of what your needs are as a group. And I think, Todd, to also circle back, we did also talk about potentially weighting some of the evaluation criteria to reflect Oregon employability skills, and if those OES skills are embedded into the application or into their workforce training idea. I'm not trying to put words in y'all's mouth, but I am trying to say that we have had this conversation before, and if that's something you all support, I would be interested to know. Sherry, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Venkat was before me, so I'll let Venkat go, then I'll go.
All right,
Okay,
Venkat.
so to Anne's point about things in the budget cuts that we could potentially consider, and to add to what Todd just said, I think the ODE just proposed a budget reduction for all the STEM programs and completely eliminating them in year 2 of the biennium. So that could be a candidate we could consider. And then secondly, I just wanted to reiterate that these grants should be both strategic and innovative, right? As per the name. And so I like the idea of industry specific, because one thing that we've done in the semiconductor talent consortium is to make sure that we have industry demand laid out, and then we have workforce supply, and we try to meet the gap with that data. And if we could do something strategic and innovative around closing that gap, that would be a good focus for this grant.
Thanks for sharing that. So I did capture that we want to find a balance in the gap between industry demand and workforce supply. So that is definitely something I can write into into the RFA. Thank you for sharing that. Go ahead, Sherry.
Yeah, so I guess I come back to a couple of things. One is the governor's priorities. So when I look at the governor's priorities around housing, behavioral health, and early childhood education, I think we should pick something from one of those as we look at, how we're distributing, where we're focused. I think the technology one is a good one, although the STEM, there is a question. So every time you do funding, you ask yourself this question. Once I do this funding, what is the money I'm giving going to seed, and will they have money to continue? And so we know there's been these big cuts. So part of the question is, will we be seeding something that can't grow without additional monies that we can't provide? That's always a concern for funders. I know as a former funder, it's unfair, but it is a concern. You look at that and you say, oh, I don't know, like I can't be funding things that can't go anywhere without me funding it, because I can't fund it indefinitely and it doesn't have anywhere else to go for money. So so then the question is, should we have the funding be more focused on things that can pull resources and that are innovative, but that perhaps intersect with some of our goals? So maybe it's looking at the technology AI integration needs in housing training for employees. Like that may be something that goes somewhere, but also hits on the things that we want, right? And around the homelessness issue, I mean, this we know is a key driver from perception, if not reality, as to how Portland and Oregon in general is being seen nationally as far as a place to start business and da da da. So if we think about touching on the governor's priorities, maybe we want to find a way to intersect with the governor's priorities through, as Venkat says, with innovation, thinking about innovative funding that sparks that innovation, that as opposed to going all in on particular areas that can't sustain themselves past our funding. So that's my thought about that.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, just I want to make sure that I capture this right, is kind of the intersectionality of tech and some of these other, like how the intersectionality of tech relates to the governor's priorities and how we can marry these things together. Is that what
That
you're
might
saying?
be a way to go. That might be a way
Okay.
to go, rather than saying we want to pick up the gap that STEM funding has, because we can't. And if we fund in that area, we may be dropping it into a bottomless well, as opposed to seeding ground. So how do we seed ground with something? Well, we know the governor has these things that are interest, and we also know we do want to bring in innovation. So how do we combine those two things is a question. And, from a funding perspective, I don't know if you mentioned this, I don't know if everybody already knows this, I don't, but how much money are we talking about?
Oh, thanks for asking the question. So right now we're looking at 100 or 728,000 is our
Yes.
investment.
So, we want the investment to be meaningful. And so I would also suggest that we not spread too thin. I don't think grants 50,000 and under are useful. That's just my personal opinion. I think we want to be impactful so that people can actually do something with the money or see something happen. So Kim and then Todd again, and then Kim and then Todd, and then we have about 13 minutes for this, and then we go on so we can finish at 3.
I have a question as the local workforce development board rep on the board, wondering if it feels like we've done this a couple different ways over the years. Sometimes these are open to workforce boards exclusively, and sometimes it's open to all community members. What are we thinking about for this year?
Yeah, I think what we had discussed, again, Sherry, sorry, jumped in there, but what we had discussed was that open competitive to the point of being as innovative as possible, to get as many different sort of lenses on it, Kim, as possible, that it would be distributed broadly across multiple different organizations, including the local workforce boards.
Well, I just have to advocate for maybe giving priority to local workforce boards. We all are seeing a pretty gigantic fiscal cliff coming up in June, and there's opportunities for terrific innovation, and a lot of that is happening. And to your point earlier, Sherry, there are some really cool things happening that we're going to have to stop funding. And so if there is a way to sort of consider that in the RFA, whether it's, some brand new program, or maybe it's some brand new program for a higher dollar amount, or continued funding for an existing successful innovative program at a lower amount. I mean, there might be ways to kind of splice this up in a way that we could do both.
In the past, Kim, there have been investments in local workforce development boards doing pilot projects. So last biennium, East Cascades Works was, we made an investment through the SIGs to give people in the behavioral health sector a chance to get clinical supervision that they would not have gotten otherwise. So I just wanted to give you like an example of a local workforce board doing a pilot project that was awarded through this grant last biennium. So,
and I wanted to quick
that's
jump
great.
in.
I appreciate that. I think, and I know there are others too, Jennifer. So I don't doubt that at all. So just want to make sure we keep that sort of front and center as well.
Yeah, and just really quick, the reason I raised my hand, which I'll put down now, was to correct the $728,000 number. That does not include recent mandated 5% cuts or more. Clay and I have to meet with Debbie Welter, who's our fiscal manager here in Office of Workforce Investments. So that number will definitely be going down.
Okay. So one question I have, this is multi-year grant, right? Is it 2-year?
Yes, it's a 2-year grant.
2-year grant.
I also wanted to flag what you were saying too about the under 50,000 isn't useful, and to say that you could potentially say that you were going to pick X amount of awards, just throwing that out there as well. Circling back to your conversation earlier, please continue. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. I don't mean it's not useful, period. I mean, to Venkat's point about the innovation part of this, if we are really trying to do some innovation part of it and not stopgap funding. So stopgap funding and innovation funding are just two very different things. Stopgap funding fills a gap. That's great. We need that. But if this is innovation funding, it's got to do something else. And so consequently, it can't be just to fill the gap. It has to be about moving ideology forward or moving something forward. And it can't be dependent on, if this grant doesn't come again, then this program is over. Like, I think that is outside of the spirit of the grant. And that's why I say, I think, 100,000 is like kind of the minimum. And especially because it's 2 years, so it's 50,000 a year to really move it forward. And so that would be my only concern is, but I do think it should be open. I don't think it should be closed. I think it should be open to anybody or any group that has these innovative ideas, but I worry about stopgap funding.
And Sherry, and Jennifer, I'm sure that this is true. I can't remember specifically, but we, in the RFA, there are questions I'm suspecting about sustainability, right? Because to address Sherry's issue, it seems like I've read that in the past, but just want to sort of reiterate that.
Yes. In the next slide that we're no longer sharing was the review criteria that I've set up for the grants. Maybe in the future I can come back and share with you guys a little bit more about this, only because I want to be respectful of people's time.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I totally get that. And I'm really just being fully transparent as a former nonprofit executive. I said a lot of things were sustainable and they weren't. I mean, I'm just keeping it 100 as far as, keeping things going. So yeah, I get it. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Just so I understand the sustainability part of this, Jennifer. So this amount is for a 2-year period, but likely to be renewed, unlikely to be renewed. How should we think about this?
I think likely to be renewed. We have had this pot of money now for several years, and it was after diligent work, as some of you that have been on the board for a long time likely remember, House Bill 3417 that Rep. Reardon sponsored, repealed the Talent Council and moved it into the WTDB, but it was an unfounded mandate. So we tried for several years to get that work. That was part of your roles and responsibilities to be funded again. And so we have had that funding for several years now, Venkat, and I anticipate that it will continue. That said, with the recent reductions in budgets, it may obviously, like many things, fluctuate, but I think there's no intention, to my knowledge, of it going away.
Yeah, but Todd, just because the SIG is there doesn't mean these particular people who get this money are guaranteed the same money in 2 more years. That's the distinction there, and it's a distinction that matters. Yeah, so it's different than the pot of money being available again, as opposed to it going specifically to these folks again, and that part is not guaranteed.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to also underscore that Clay put some really smart comments in the chat. There are recommendations that were included in the behavioral health report from the HEC and also in the housing report. So maybe that could help inform the tie to the governor's priority, Sherry. So maybe what makes sense is, we move on now, but we'll get together with Jen Rice and collaborate.
Thank you,
and then
Jennifer
maybe bring
Rice.
some of this stuff back to a future meeting.
I see Jennifer has to go. Thank you. Please feel free to go on your way. Thank you very much. Totally understand it. I didn't see the comments till just now. All right. Thank you, Clay, also for that. Sorry, my chat thing was closed. So we have our final presentation, I believe, and it is Kim and Georgia.
I was going to say thank you.
I looked at the first and then I moved away. I moved away from the agenda before my eye fully and my brain met up together. Yeah.
Totally understand. We're going to do a little bit of tag teaming here, but Georgia is really going to lead this. Georgia, if you have not met her, is the Executive Director, CEO of Oregon Workforce Partnership. So I'm going to let her walk us through this, and I'm going to provide sort of color commentary and success stories.
Thank you. I think Sherry made you panic just a little bit, Kim. Also, speaking of pilot projects, this is a flagship pilot project that was, as many of you know, the Prosperity Programs was born out of Future Ready Oregon, which was single-time funding post-COVID meant to really move the needle during the economic downturn. But also it highlighted the need and the gap that has occurred over the loss of federal funding over many years. So I have this generic presentation that and I wouldn't say totally generic, but I can use it for people who don't know workforce. So I have this extra slide in here on the role of the Workforce Board versus the association, which is what OWP does. And OWP really focuses on the advocacy piece, state and federal legislation. How do we advocate for workforce dollars, stretch them, find ways to collaborate, and be as efficient with our resources as possible. As I said, this conversation matters because federal workforce funding has declined 50% over the last 10 years. We see that in all of our systems across the board, not just in WIOA, but in every way, and we're talking about it every day. Another fun fact, which many of you might be aware of, is Oregon's general fund is reliant 82% on personal income taxes. Can I control this PowerPoint, or
I was going to just say that, yeah, somebody else needs to, there you go. So you just need to
keep going to the next one. There we are. This is the highest reliance on income taxes in the nation. Oregon leads the way. And that makes a really unique situation for Oregon. If we don't have people at work, we're not able to pay for our healthcare, our roads, our education system. Like the list just goes, it cascades on. And so when we really look at like what matters, it is business development and workforce development, and making sure those things are working hand in hand, because those are the growth industries. That's how we're going to sustain and rebuild Oregon's infrastructure. So prosperity programs really plays into that, and we're seeing it in every way. Like the outcomes are really phenomenal. For OWP, prosperity programs and the workforce reentry program are like our stars, because the reentry program is showing less than 1% in recidivism rate compared to DOC's 38% over 3 years. And the prosperity programs, we've been doing this for not quite 4 years now, but we've almost met our 10,000 person goal, and our percentage rates for completion and outcomes are meeting or exceeding the national average. We can see this in 5 ways.
Bridget, you need to ask the slide to be
oh yeah,
continue. You're not, yeah.
This one. So we are doing, go back to the one, doing more with less. This is the overall impact. Here you can see each of the workforce boards invested the dollars in 3 ways. High impact programs, things they already knew worked, innovation or pilot projects, and then community wraparound supports and investments. This could be something like expungement services. And you'll see later, we have expunged over 2,000 records in Oregon. Statewide performance is excellent, and these numbers are not complete. You can move to the next one. The return on investment for this program specifically, we can safely estimate that we get $4.84, close to $5 per every dollar that we invest in workforce. This includes the reduced public service costs, the increase of tax revenue. It's like everything. What's so unique about workforce programs is that when we put money into workforce, we don't get it directly back. I'm constantly having to say this. Like OWP can advocate for workforce, but no one's paying me back for that money. If I get a law passed, then the workforce boards benefit from that. You benefit from that. But I still am doing this work. And the same is true for these programs. They bring in this money, they put that into the economy, and the economy benefits. So we have to have legislation around workforce that is going to continue to invest in these programs over and over and over. You can go to the next slide. Delivering results. We can see that we are 95% success rate. 7 in 10 people that go through these programs are employed and have long-term employment. These programs, people who go through the prosperity programs, end the cycle of poverty. And we can prove it over and over and over. Next slide. Pathways to prosperity. This one talks about the engaged training employment. So 6,500 engaged in training employment, 88% completion rate, And then something that's just outstanding is the average wage. Overall across the state, 22.69 per an hour. And this fluctuates a little bit quarter to quarter. Some quarters we see it over $23 an hour. Some about 21 and a half. But even so, that's much far higher than minimum wage.
And Georgia, it's higher than our goal. The goal in legislation was $17 an hour. And that was, that was at the time felt like a lofty goal. So this has been a real shining light, I think, on this program.
Absolutely. You can see these quality job indicators, you know, where have we been able to place and make the biggest impact. Next slide. Since we started, you know, back to the Future Ready Oregon conversation, we went to the legislature and asked for $50 million. And they came back and said, we'll give you 35, which turned out to be closer to 32. You know, I'll hold back and all said, but the name was so iconic or catchy. They were like, well, we still want you to serve 10,000 people. And so there's a little bit of angst around that, but ultimately, because all of these programs were already in place, the relationships were there, this really speaks to the benefit of workforce boards. Sometimes workforce boards can feel like they're middle management or just brokers taking a cut. But the work that they do in convening all of these people together and building those relationships creates efficiencies where you can't have it in other places. And you can see it in the prosperity programs because they've been able to still meet the original goal with 2/3 of the money. Next slide. I have 3 stories that I can share with you here. And they're just little snippets. Go to the next slide. This one, Lorinda's story. This is a Clackamas County story. She is actually their first enrollee. And I got invited to the Clackamas Workforce Partnership Board meeting just a month ago. And Lorinda was on the call with her family members. And so she's been through alongside them over the last 4 years, enrolled in this program, got her record entirely expunged, and now has $16,000 that she has put aside for a down payment in a house. She's fully self-sufficient and happy to be clean. Like the story just doesn't get better than that. You can see here they've done 1,843 expungements under Prosperity 10,000, and that is just within Clackamas County because they really champion the effort. Other regions have also done expungements through Clean Slate Clackamas, which has been useful in so many ways, like the clinics or just the referrals that happen. People call me. I get at least 2 phone calls a week asking, how do I get to the expungement clinic? Next slide. This is a SOWIB client. A great example of how prosperity programs supported someone through an apprenticeship program at kind of the higher education level. She, single parent, had multiple barriers to, transitioning careers and was able to get through her master's program through an apprenticeship in SOWIB. Continue. Next slide. There should be one more. Yes, Anna Reese. This one is also kind of a great story because she's a refugee coming from Cuba, not a lot of opportunity, a language barrier, and was able to work in the Portland metro area to get her employed as a teacher aide and making a decent living. I want to pause here because I know Kim has a story from her region she wanted to share.
I have a couple. Thanks, Georgia. And just reflecting on the prior conversation about sustainability, I have to just tell this one story. We have funded a number of commercial driver's license cohorts, and we have done that with prosperity funding. We do it with WIOA funding as well. But because of the flexibility of the prosperity funding, we were able to work with municipalities. So we heard from a couple of cities out in Yamhill County that they were just desperate to train some of their incumbent workers and get them up to CDL level of certification. So we contracted with Chemeketa Community College and supported the city of Newburgh and I think one or two other cities in Yamhill County. And as a result, that relationship is now sort of independent of us. So we were able to connect, we convened, we provided a relatively small investment, frankly. And as a result, there is this established relationship now between municipalities in Yamhill County that have these huge needs for commercial driver's license and Chemeketa. So that's just kind of a fun little story. I'm sure you have all heard, because it's one of my favorite stories, about the bilingual bicultural EMT training that we did, that we funded with prosperity funding up in the North Marion County area. We kept hearing from ambulance servicers that they needed people who spoke Spanish primarily to respond to 911 calls, and they just didn't have enough. And so we were able to fund a cohort of individuals who were bilingual and who could become employed as EMTs. Some went on to continue in their healthcare career, which was kind of exciting as well. And then my computer has completely died, so my apologies. I'm working remotely today, but I'm just going to read you one more. We funded in our region, back to the reentry conversation, a cohort of welders. So these were individuals who were coming out of county jail mostly. And this gentleman's name is Jonathan, and last spring, this is a quote directly, "My accomplishments so far would be completing the welding classes at Chemeketa Community College. I took the welding certification test, and the week after, I was able to interview for a welding job. I passed their welding certification test and received a job offer. I want to join the program because I have a record, and it's been hard to find a decent job with a record. And because I became a father, and my son's birth pushed me to want to better myself and to be better for him. I want to be able to be a provider for him and give him a good life." So Jonathan secured full-time employment with a manufacturing company in Woodburn, specializing in horizontal welding. So just some examples of how this investment of Prosperity 10,000 in Future Ready Oregon has impacted real lives in our state.
Thanks, Kim. This funding has been invaluable over the last 4 years. It does end June 30. Every dollar will be spent by June 30. Some of the dollars for different regions, I know EC Works has already expended all of their funds. And so these essential programs are no longer happening in the state. And we don't yet feel it, but we will. There's going to be a huge uprising of people that need our assistance and help, and we won't be able to answer for that. We need continuation of workforce funding. Back to this pilot program piece, pilot programs only work when you can create a sustainable plan. And we're hoping that the legislature will step in to make this happen for us. Anyway, we need champions and support to make sure that Oregonians is supported this way. If you go to the next slide, you can download the report for yourself. The Portland State has also done a research project on this. We had commissioned as a third-party evaluator, and we've included that at the bottom of the report. Any questions about this?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's really great. I know that this issue of addressing the records, the criminal records is such a big barrier. I was just talking to somebody who operates in a state that allows cannabis, and their company tests for cannabis, and they're having a hard time getting workers. And I'm like, you're in a state that tests for that allows cannabis. None of the other employers test for cannabis. You're going to have a hard time getting workers. I don't know, so it's like, understanding where people are and what they need and giving them that is quite transformative. So thank you very much for that. Thank you both. Any other questions that anybody has on any of the things that we discussed so far today? We do have the upcoming board meeting. What day is that, you guys?
December 12th.
December 12th. So we have that coming up. If you have any other questions, if you want to follow up with anything that you heard today, or if you have ideas that come to you about you know what? I'm such a non-acronym person, but I'll say it, the SIGs. I don't like acronyms. They annoy me. I'll say the whole name. Like I'll say your whole name if I'm talking to a person. I don't do shorthand names, but anyway, if you have follow-ups on the SIGs, if you have things that you're like, oh, I what about this? What about that? Please feel free to follow up directly, so that input can be received. Okay. Anything else anything else?
Could I just say that Julia asked me to mention this? Miranda and I and some others are working on legislative sort of concepts and policy option packages, and have been having some really good discussions about that. I don't want to get into too much detail, but if any of you out there have ideas, sort of thinking on past conversations we've had around systems alignment, continuous improvement, accountability, and maybe some of the topics we've talked about here today that you think make sense to bring into the conversation around legislative concepts for 2020 long session, please feel free to send me an email or reach out to me if you're interested and want to have more of a conversation to better understand what I mean by that. We've done some of that in the past over the years, and just wanted to toss that out there for y'all to noodle on. Let me know if you're interested in chatting.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Anything else anybody has to say or questions? Okay. All right. Then we are adjourned, and I will see folks on December 12th.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thanks, everybody.